I managed to gain 34 kilos in 2 years, only to lose 28 of it in 6 months. Today I want to share 5 things that I wish I could have done differently if I could go back in time. For those who don't know me, my name is Derek Tun. I'm an online coach, and I basically want to use this channel to share some of the mistakes that I've made and also lessons I've learned along the way that have got me to this point to be able to teach you and other people how to go about their fitness journey without making the same mistakes that I made. And hopefully it can show you that basically all of us start at the exact same spot, which is absolutely clueless about how to go about this whole thing. So to give some context, I think it's important to understand where this started from. Basically, I grew up a skinny kid. I was floating around, I believe, 55 to 60 kilos for the majority of my teens. And if I recall correctly, I got to around 16 or 17. I started hitting the gym, started falling in love with the process of getting stronger, building more muscle. Even though I had no idea what I was doing in there, I relied heavily on YouTube videos, bodybuilders, anything I could find, all the forums, just to get my information there on how to build more muscle. And basically what this led to was the mentality, you gotta eat big to get big and go on these big bulks in order to put on a whole bunch of weight and a whole bunch of muscle and then eventually strip off the fat. Not to over explain here, but basically I went on a extreme bulk, went from 60 kilos up to 94 kilos at my peak in a matter of 2 years. And this would have been around when I was 18 to 19 years old. Although looking back on it, it's pretty funny seeing how much weight I actually put on. I haven't been anywhere near that weight since then. But I think just simply looking back and seeing how much weight I actually gained in a matter of 2 years and how that really made me look, it's definitely an experience which I like to look back on every now and again and just to laugh at. So basically I put on 34 kilos, which was primarily body fat. I thought I was huge, I thought I was big, I thought I was training hard, and because in that moment I was in love with bodybuilding, I really liked the idea of competing in a bodybuilding competition, not really understanding what it really took to compete there, also not really understanding what the lifestyle consisted of, except of what I saw in YouTube videos of professional bodybuilders and also what I read in the forums. I decided at 19 years old, after a 2-year bulk, that I would go ahead and compete in my first and what turns out to be my last bodybuilding show. I competed in a rookie competition in the teens event, and that was what my focus was coming out of high school basically. Now like I said, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. All I really had was maybe 3 shitty years of training experience, trying out a whole bunch of random shit in the gym, not really actually having a program, but also stuffing my face, not with junk, but with like sweet potato, chicken breast, Greek yogurt, eggs, high calorie smoothies, you name it, all the bro foods that you can think of, I basically jammed down my throat and just to try and gain as much weight as I possibly could. And so obviously feeling a little bit overwhelmed in where I need to go next, I went and looked to hire a coach. Now I'm 26 right now, and so 7 years ago the coaching industry was not as popular as it is right now, and that's because the online space was still in its developing stages. All you could really get access to were in-person trainers and maybe some very cheap online programs, not necessarily proper one-to-one online coaching. And so the first thing I went was to look for a coach, and I'm not going to say who it was, but the first person I went to was someone that I had been following and I admired for a very long time. He was an Australian coach. I basically went to this coach saying, hey, I want you to get me in shape for my first bodybuilding show. And from what I remember, I barely had any money in the bank. But because I was so in love with the idea of competing in my first show, I spent all the money I needed to get my coaching. Now, you might be wondering how this is actually relevant to what I was going to share with you in this video, which is 5 things I wish I would have done differently. And this is sort of an additional point, but that was the first mistake that I made. I went into coaching not really doing my due diligence and also not really knowing what to expect in the coaching process. And although the systems and coaches back then weren't nearly as developed as they are right now, from what I know, I'm not blaming that coach whatsoever. I was underprepared going into the program, going under his wing, and as a result, I wasted not only my time, but his time. From what I remember, there were around 9 months until the competition when I reached out to him, and I had been with him for 3 months, and I didn't see any of the results that I was expecting, not only because I didn't really know what was going on, but also because I had an ego at that time where I already thought I knew enough to do it on my own, but I just wanted a coach there to sort of tell me that I was doing the right thing. Basically what he said to me was, Derek, you're way too heavy. There's too much weight to lose right now. I think what we should focus on is just getting the fat off first and then worrying about whether or not you can compete later. Basically, my response was, fuck this. I'm going to do it on my own. I don't need this coach. I don't need any help. I know what I need to do. I can just go on YouTube and figure it all out on my own. And that's basically what I did. I said, I don't need your service anymore. I'm going to go figure this out on my own. Keep in mind, I'm only 19 years old. And back then, the information was nowhere near as readily available as it is right now. So basically, where we are right now, I had 6 months to compete in this bodybuilding show, and I had a whole bunch of weight to lose with very, very poor experience under my belt and no idea what I was doing. And so now that you have context around how I got into this position to begin with, now it's time for me to share the 5 things that I wish I could have done differently if I could go back in time right now. The first thing is definitely setting an unrealistic deadline for when I need to get in shape, especially with the skills and experience that I was extremely limited with. Looking back now, not only did setting this deadline that was unrealistic and put a lot of pressure on me, which led me to do a whole bunch of wacky shit, which I'm going to go through in this video, but I think it was just silly of me to assume that going through such a big fat loss phase with no experience to begin with was going to end well for me. I think there was almost a level of ego where I refused to believe that I had put on too much body fat, and I just had to lose a couple kilos in order to get in this great shape to be able to even stand on that stage and be happy with what I could bring. Now you might be thinking, this has nothing to do with me. I don't even want to step on a stage to compete in bodybuilding. I want you to take everything I say and apply it to your own fat loss journey, because I often talk to people who want to lose 20, 25, 30 kilos in a matter of 6 months as well. And every time someone brings that up with me, it immediately reminds me of how I put that pressure upon myself when I was younger, and the mistakes that led from having that expectation that I wouldn't have been able to meet without doing a whole bunch of stupid shit. And so if I could go back, I definitely think I would have just said no to doing the bodybuilding show. I would just tell myself to take my time to lose the weight in the best way possible, to learn more about what it would really take to get myself in that sort of shape. And that way, I would have actually been able to enjoy the process a little bit more, because in the process of achieving these results, not only was there not as much pressure on me to be able to get there by a certain deadline, but also I would have seen better results because I would have taken my time to do it properly. Now this leads me to the second thing that I wish I would have done differently, and that's basically not listening too much or at all to bodybuilders who were professionals to begin with, but also on PEDs, right? Basically performance enhancing drugs, steroids. But like I said, back then the information was nowhere near as readily available as it is now. And so I was limited to what I had knowledge to, right? I had been exposed to X amount of information and I had to utilize on the information that I had been given. Yes, I could have spent a bit more time doing my due diligence, but remember, I'm only 19. I was eager to get in shape. I had 6 months to get as lean as possible, and what better way to do that than to follow the professionals who do it time and time again. Now the issue is not that I disagree with anything they were doing. I have no idea what the right thing was at that moment. The main reason why I would want to change it is because I'm not a professional. I have no business doing anything they were doing, because it was firstly my first bodybuilding show and also my first actual fat loss phase. And so seeing professionals do what they do and trying to replicate that is skipping the years of work that they had put in, and also skipping the years of mistakes that they were making, and basically just emulating something that I had no business emulating. I basically copied how they trained, how they ate, how they lived, their mentality, anything that I could find to get my hands on, and anything I could read about how they would go into their own prep, I would try my best to try and copy as well. Although I really idolize these guys, looking back now, it was extremely silly of me to think that I was at the level that would warrant the extreme measures that they took in order to get the results that they got. I was here, imagine this as level 1, and they were here, level 100. I tried to skip all these steps in between to try and get to level 100 in a matter of 6 months. Now this ties in nicely to the third thing I wish I would have done differently, and that's basically not having such an extreme mindset, which links into having that deadline upon myself, because when I put that much pressure on myself, it led me to have to make more drastic changes and take more extreme measures to try and get myself in shape by that time. Who I was idolizing, which were these bodybuilders who were pro athletes and also on steroids, they were doing things which I had no business in doing. I looked to them for guidance online, and obviously bodybuilding is a very extreme discipline. And so I adopted that mindset into my own approach. That's because I believed that's what had to be done in order for me to be happy with the result by the end of the 6 months. Now the mentality I adopted during this time was basically, as long as I'm suffering, I'm succeeding. I would train for longer hours. There were times I was in the gym for like 3 to 4 hours, 6 days a week. I would eat as little as I can, because eating less meant a form of more suffering. I would do more cardio, because again, those who can't commit to 6 days, 7 days of cardio for an hour at a time, as long as I'm more disciplined and I'm more extreme than them, I will get better results than everyone else. Saying this out loud, it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but in that moment and during that period, that was the mentality that I had, and nothing was going to stop me. And what that ultimately led to was a 6 months of a cycle between spending way too long in the gym, spending way too much time doing cardio, eating way too little, only to bounce back and binge on a whole bunch of random shit at nighttime. It was a vicious cycle that I caught myself in for basically the entirety of 6 months. Feeling guilty around the binges, feeling fat all the time, constantly guilting myself into believing that I was not trying hard enough, And as long as I put in more effort every single day, even if it was in the wrong direction, it's always going to be better than not putting enough effort at all. Hopefully you can see how unpleasant that might have been during that entire 6-month period, because basically I developed very unhealthy habits and very unhealthy relationships with not only training, which I used to enjoy, but I just started hating during that period, but also an unhealthy relationship with food as well, where I would punish myself every time I would overeat because I was so hungry, or punish myself by eating less because I didn't move enough. There was a whole cascade of basically cook shit that I did on a regular basis to try and make myself feel better, even though I was just dragging myself through the mud constantly. And I'll be honest, there was obviously a hint of enjoyment from me doing these things, because like I said, I adopted that mentality that the more extreme I was, the better results I would get. Right? I got this mentality basically from the videos that I would watch of other bodybuilders, how they sort of went about their own diet.
At 10 o'clock, I'll have fish. At 12 o'clock, I'll have fish and a rice cake. At 2 o'clock, I'll have fish. At 4 o'clock, just before I train, I'll have fish and a rice cake.
The forums that I read, the interviews that I went through, and I built this mentality that, okay, this is gonna suck, but as long as it sucks, I know I'm on the right track because I'm doing more than everyone else. Now that I look back on it, that was absolutely wrong. Now, the fourth thing I wish I could have done differently if I could go back is to basically focus more on building a better relationship with training, with nutrition, and fitness as a whole. What I mean by that is by setting such an extreme goal to get lean when I was so young in my training career, it made me skip a whole bunch of steps that are crucial and essential to have a very successful and sustainable long-term fitness journey. With my food, if I could go back, I would have focused more on understanding more about nutrition, learning more about how different foods play a role in the diet, understanding more about macros, about micronutrients, and about ultimately what healthy eating really looks like, rather than eating specifically to lose weight. And rather than simply following a bodybuilder's diet of chicken breast, broccoli, eggs, sweet potato, all these foods I don't even like, I would have been able to construct a better plan for myself that was more detailed and got me to my goal in a much easier fashion. I'll be honest, with my training, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I basically went on YouTube every single time before a session. I would watch the workouts that bodybuilders would do. I'd type in, for example, Ronnie Coleman leg day, or whoever else I felt like following on that day, and just go about the same workout that they did. I was doing a lot of random exercises, no structure to my training, basically just showing up to the gym, doing as many reps as I could, as many drop sets as I could, as many supersets, just to try and get as much work as I possibly could in that one session. Now, I don't want anyone watching this to think that's a level of commitment that's admirable. Understand that I was 19 years old. I didn't have anything going on. I didn't even have a job then except for working at my family's restaurant. And so, no, it is not admirable when you have that much time to waste in the gym. But also, it didn't work. But basically, the main point I'm trying to get across with this whole thing here is I wish I would have spent more time building a better relationship with fitness. Spending more time building a healthy lifestyle, a healthy relationship with food, healthy habits of eating, healthy ways of training, healthy ways of moving my body on a regular basis. I wish I had spent more time doing these things rather than just simply focusing on getting as much weight as I possibly could. That's simply because it would have saved me the time after the diet, after the competition, that I had to spend rebuilding my lifestyle in a way that was more manageable on a regular basis, but also got me better results that were more realistic and weren't so extreme. Before I move to the next point, guys, basically what I'm trying to say here is building a healthy lifestyle is always going to trump the short-term fat loss goal or muscle building goal that you put upon yourself. Fitness, healthy eating, good training, getting your body moving, sleeping properly, these are not things that you just simply conveniently put in whenever you feel like. They are things that you maintain and uphold for the rest of your life. The one thing that I wish I would have done differently is focus on these areas first, rather than focusing on a bodybuilding competition. Because in my eyes, although it was a learning experience, I had wasted that 6 months that could have been spent building an extremely good lifestyle at only 19 years old. Now, the fifth and final thing that I wish I would have done differently, if I could go back, that I'm sure is going to resonate with a lot of you guys, is basically to not do whatever means necessary to get that scale down. Keep in mind, I didn't say get that fat off. I literally said get that scale down. As long as that scale was going down, that's all that mattered to me in that moment. I would weigh in the morning, I would weigh in the afternoon, I would weigh in at night, I would weigh in after cardio, after a session. I would weigh in at multiple points throughout the day, just hoping to see that scale go down. As insane as that sounds, I'm not even joking. I was consistently doing it for that 6-month period. I'm gonna give you an idea of some of the things that I did to try and see that scale go down, all right? The first thing I did, intermittent fasting. I would weigh myself after an extended fast. I think I did 8 and 16. Sometimes I did even 4 and 20. And as a result, of course, the scale went down. But to my surprise, it would go up the moment I ate normally again. I also did keto, where I completely removed carbohydrates for a few weeks. And I saw the weight quickly go down and saw that scale number go down. But to my surprise again, every time I binged at nighttime, every time I had something off of the plan that wasn't really a plan, it was just basically eating chicken breast. Every time I ate something off of that rigidity, it would end up being a spike on the scale and make me panic. I'd be like, what the fuck's going on? I would do extremely long cardio sessions before bed with a hoodie on, with trackies on, with a beanie on, to try and sweat as much as I possibly could right before bed. And then I wouldn't drink any water. I would go to bed, wake up the next morning, weigh in, and be like, fuck yes, the scale went down. Now this other one that you guys may or may not have heard of is basically an Epsom salt bath. I literally don't even remember where I got this idea from. I think I saw it from one of the forums, or someone was doing it on YouTube. That was an athlete who needed to cut a whole bunch of water. Basically, they said, this is going to drain you of your water weight and it's going to help you get to a certain weight. And in my mind, immediately, I was like, okay, this is a great idea. I'm going to see that scale go down. This has to be a great idea for me to get in shape. Went to the supermarket, got these salts, filled up the bathtub, put these salts in there, and I would sit there for what I believe was around like 20 to 30 minutes at a time. And I would weigh myself after every single time that I sat in there. And of course, the scale goes down. I'm extremely happy, only to be disappointed when I weigh in again next and the scale goes back up because I had food or I had water. These are just some of the things that I did during this 6-month period. And when I say it was fucked, it was absolutely fucked. I just couldn't stop doing these things, not only because they made me so uncomfortable that I felt like it was necessary to get these things done, but also it was just fun to me in that moment, seeing the scale go down by any means necessary. Just some additional context so you can see where I'm coming from. There was a period of over 6 to 8 weeks where I would basically get to nighttime and I would get on the treadmill, I would put it on a high incline at a fairly quick pace, and I would walk on there for 2 hours, put an iPad on the treadmill holder, whatever you call it, and I would watch an entire movie while I was doing cardio. With my hoodie on, with my track pants on, in aims to try and lose as much weight as I possibly could. After every single session, because I felt like I deserved it, I would have multiple bites of different snacks. I remember going to the supermarket, buying these 6-pack of iced ring donuts, and I would tell myself, I'm only gonna have one. And there were multiple occasions where I ended up eating 4, 5, even the 6-pack to be further disappointed in myself for letting myself go like that, and then hopping back on the treadmill to try and undo all the damage that I felt like I had done. This actually happened more than I'm proud to admit. And so guys, these are the 5 things which I definitely wish I would have done differently if I could go back. Now, although I don't necessarily regret doing any of this, because I definitely feel like it was a huge learning experience that led me to where I am now, where I'm able to help other people get in great shape and avoid the same mistakes that I made, it was clear that I had absolutely no fucking idea what I was doing. I was just following whatever trend or whatever information I found out there, not doing any of my own research or due diligence, and just simply following what I was told to do in order to lose as much weight as possible. And now, although there is plenty of good information out there, plenty of people sharing good, valuable content and knowledge to help you level up your fitness game, I still hear and see a lot of the crazy things that people do in order to just try and lose weight that reminds me a lot of myself. Obviously, I'm not saying go out and do a salt bath every day or go 2 hours on the treadmill and then binge on fucking donuts. I definitely think sometimes going through these things and realizing how stupid you were when you made these mistakes, you really start to appreciate how far your knowledge has come and how far you have grown and matured from those crazy tactics, and just come to appreciate the simple approaches that work time and time again. I also actually do sort of appreciate the fact that it showed me how focused and committed I could be to something, even though it was the entirely wrong thing to be committed to. And that's something I definitely don't feel like many people get to experience, going wholeheartedly 100% into something, even if it means absolutely destroying yourself in the process. So that's it for today's video, guys. I want to thank you if you've managed to watch this far, and I appreciate you staying tuned and listening to all the dumb shit that I did when I was a kid in order to get in shape. Safe to say, now I'm in a much different position where I'm able to teach others how to go about their fat loss journeys, losing 10, 20, 30 kilos and more, and do it in a way that is much less extreme and much more enjoyable for my clients. If you want to make sure you don't make the same mistakes that I made or even other ones, stay tuned on this channel. I'm going to be sharing more videos, more lessons, more mistakes that I've made, and also some of my client success stories that are going to maybe apply to your current situation and help you level up your fitness game as well. Alternatively, you can go right to my Instagram at Coach Derek Tun, where you can simply watch and digest a lot of the shorter form content that I make there and the free value and tips I give that have helped me get to where I am now, where I'm able to coach others to get their best bodies and see great results. That's it, guys, and I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.